a hardcore Democrat or a hardcore Republican, well, you just chill. Everything's fine. This morning, the sun rose, okay? And then that white stuff all over. Both sides can claim they did well, right? The Democrats won control of the House. The Republicans maintained control of the Senate. It's divided government. Nothing will get done because the House will pass things and the Senate won't, and the Senate will pass things and the House won't. It'll be gridlock. But remember, and I said this when they wrote the Constitution, the writers of the Constitution intentionally wanted it to be that way. They wanted a government that was inefficient because they emerged from a government, the British government, where they were passing laws left and right. And they didn't like that. So they purposefully put brakes on attempted legislation. So yesterday, Madison and Jefferson would have been happy. Perfect. Nothing will get done. Yay. That's what they wanted. Okay. I do think that one of the important outcomes of yesterday was that now that the House is in Democratic hands, you will see increased investigations of the Trump administration because now they can. Democrats did not have that power when they were the minority party. But now that they are the majority, these House investigations will occur. And so that's kind of interesting. Okay, anyway, speaking of corruption, the corrupt bargain of 1824. So let's take a look at this. Oh, good. Excellent. This makes me happy. And when I say happy, I mean not happy. I've noticed that the internet's not really working today.
Really?
No. Yeah, it kind of sucks.
Well, we can just look at this. This is good enough. So, do you remember that the previous several elections, there was like 6 in a row, all won by the same party? Does that ring a bell? What party dominated? The Democratic Republicans. Jefferson, Madison, Monroe. That's 6 straight elections of the same party. So dominant were they that by 1824, the next election, that would have been the 7th election. Not overall, but I mean, after 6 straight presidential elections of Democratic Republicans, okay, now the next election. By this election, they didn't even bother saying what party they were from. Why bother? We're all Democratic Republicans. It's like at the entrance, if Mr. Probst and Miss Donnelly were like, all right, what's your name? And where do you go to school? And you'd be like, here. Oh, okay. All right. And then tomorrow, where do you go to school? Here. After 7 days, maybe those two would think, hey, we don't need to ask that question anymore. Same thing. 6 straight elections of Democratic Republican winning led to the end of the Federalist Party. They died, which meant everyone's a Democratic Republican, at least theoretically. So that's why no political party affiliation in 1824. But that does not mean that there was not opposition. I should probably start. Oh, you started. Thank you.
Welcome.
Wonderful. So we have 4 candidates. J.Q. Adams, that is the son of John Adams, our 2nd president. That's his son. And then we have something named Jackson. Say, we've seen that name before. That's Andrew Jackson, hero of New Orleans, building upon his military success to run for the presidency. And I already said that there's a long and rich history of successful military leading to the presidency. Although not for a while now, but it's been done. And then something named Crawford, and then this is Henry Clay. Henry Clay, greatest senator to ever live. He's the guy that came up with the Missouri Compromise, and so he is a great senator, but like the Vikings, never won the big one. Ran for president many times, never quite got over that hump. Anyway. Looking at the popular vote, just this little pie right there. Who won a majority?
No one.
No one won a majority. Very good. Now, certainly Team Green is the biggest piece of pie, but it is not a majority. Let's look at the electoral vote. Who won a majority? No one. No one won a majority. Now, Team Green certainly is the biggest piece of pie, but it's not a majority. And now you know this because it's happened before. When no one wins a majority of the electoral vote, wahapa. Have I ever told you about Grandpa Potter?
Like 3 times.
Okay, wahapa. He spoke funny, but I can make fun of him because I'm part of deaf culture and you're not. Okay, wahapa. If no one wins a majority of the electoral vote, wahapa. It goes to the House of Representatives. And in the House of Representatives, each state gets 1 vote, no matter what your population is, which some people would argue is anti-democratic, because that means that Wyoming has as big an impact as California. Wyoming, population, 600,000. California, population, 54 million. And they each get 1 vote. But that is federalism. That's what our country is based on, the idea that states run the show. States run the show. Okay, and in the in the House of Representatives, no one won a majority. After the first vote, after the second vote, after the third vote, and after a while, Mr. Clay met with the people that kept voting for him and said, stop voting for me. Vote for Adams. Vote for Adams. Okay? And they did. And Adams won the presidency, which made somebody kind of angry. Andrew Jackson, who wasn't known as the calmest person ever, sort of lost it. Okay? Remember, this is the guy who, when he was 13 years old, fought in the Revolutionary War. What were you doing? Probably playing recess and picking your nose. He was fighting the British. This is the guy who won the War of 1812's largest battle, Battle of New Orleans. This is the guy who killed Indians. And this little wimp, John Quincy Adams, has just beaten him in the presidential election because of this guy. Oh, and he can't wait for the rematch. Okay. In exchange for Clay offering to support Adams, Adams named him Secretary of State. You ever heard of this term? I'll scratch you. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, or something like that, right? I'll do you a favor, you do me a favor. That is known as the corrupt bargain. The corrupt bargain. This deal, this shady deal, right? And corrupt bargains, corruption has been part of American history since day one. And it continues, right? Did I'm not saying he did or didn't, but did Trump allow for Russian interference into the 2016 election? I don't know. But here's the thing, neither do you. And so there's an investigation going on right now with this person named the special prosecutor. His name is Robert Mueller. And you really haven't heard much from that guy for about the past 2 months, which happens to coincide with, that's about how long the last election season was, about 2 months. And Mueller kind of stepped back, let the election occur. I almost guarantee this, you will start hearing from Robert Mueller soon. He's going to start making noise again. Corruption, it's been a part of American history forever. Question?
What was Clay's new job again?
He was the Secretary of State. He's the new Secretary of State. So now John Quincy Adams is president. As president, by the way, he was quite liberal. He wanted more roads, more canals. He wanted a giant telescope. This is true. A huge telescope. By the way, speaking of telescopes, have any of you taken up the U of M's offer any Friday night, 8 o'clock? Did you know that? Any Friday night at 8 o'clock, they have a huge telescope there. It's about the length of this room. Free. You can go look at stars.
An observatory.
Yeah. Do you remember when we took the tour and there was that area that they called the mall It's just that open grassy area.
Yeah.
Well, if you're facing the student union, it's to your left. There's a golden dome there. That's the observatory. It's free. I have also not done it, but I want to. So that counts for something. The fact that I want to. Okay. Right. He's quite liberal. Okay, there's his presidency. Let's move on straight to the next election. This is the 1828 election. Now, this might not be large enough, but can you at least conclude what team won based on color? Team yellow.
That's Jackson.
Yeah, that's Jackson. Andrew Jackson runs again and wins decisively. Notice the difference between these two elections. Previous election, how many candidates were there?
4.
4. This time, 2. If you have 2 people running, someone's going to win a majority. Unless there's a tie, someone's going to win a majority. So Jackson isn't going to get robbed this time. He's going to dominate. He does. He dominates the popular vote. He dominates the electoral vote. On the right is a listing of the reasons why this election is considered one of the 5 most important in our nation's history. And it's because things that existed in this election that did not exist 4 years before. 2 new parties. 2 new parties emerge. Remember this, that no matter how many parties there are always going to be people that think government should do more, and there are always going to be people that think government should do less. There will always be liberal points of view and conservative points of view. So 4 years previously, when there was one party, there were still liberal Democratic Republicans and conservative Democratic Republicans. Those liberal Democratic Republicans broke off and formed a new party. They're the National Republicans. They are not the Republicans of today. And then the more conservative Jacksonian Democrats, which are the Democrats of today. The Democratic Party is the oldest political party in the US. But what's weird is their political point of view. They were conservative back then. They wanted smaller federal government, bigger state government, less taxes, less spending. They're the conservatives. When did the Democratic Party go from being the party of states' rights and conservatives to today's party, which is hooray federal government? Government provides services. Government is a good thing. When did that switch occur? Stay tuned. I'll give you 2 names if you want to know. I'll give you 2 names when that occurred. FDR and Martin Luther King. Those are the 2 people that led to the Democratic Party being the party it is today. But that's okay. Second thing that I think you can imagine makes it so that a whole lot more people can vote. 4 years previously, you had to be white, male, and you had to own property. You had to own property. They dropped that requirement. Still had to be white, still had to be male, but you no longer had to own property. Now let's think that through. Economically, what does that mean? Who can now vote?
The poor.
Poor white males can vote. Poor what? Stereotype here, but here we go. Of course, this is not everyone. Poor white trash can vote. Poor people that live in little shacks can now vote. Poor white males that live in apartment buildings and work in factories can now vote. It's bringing in a whole new group of people. And you know who they voted for? Andrew Jackson. Overwhelmingly. He's one of us, is what they thought. And they voted for him. By the way, interesting parallels between Andrew Jackson and Donald Trump. Same thing. Both were rich, and yet both are widely supported by poor white males. Both of them, because both of them see him as one of us. And when you point out No, he isn't. Yeah, he is, damn it. Okay. Same thing. Okay. That's a really important reason, right? We're looking at the increase in democracy. We're including more people. And the results, Jackson wins, and he's going to usher in a new phase. Have you ever heard of the idea that we are now in the third party system? Does that ring a bell with anybody? The first party system was the Democratic Republicans against the Federalists. That's the first party system, and it lasted, the first 10 elections or something like that. Here's the second one, second party system. The Jacksonian Democrats against somebody. Now, this group would change their name to the Whigs, but there's the second party system. We are now in the third party system, the Republicans and the Democrats. Okay. Any questions there? One more slide, and then you get lots of stuff. Okay. Jackson's cabinet. Do you remember what's I'm talking about the cabinet? What's that? What's the cabinet? Secretary of State, Secretary of this, Secretary of that. Today there are 14. There are 14 secretaries. Each secretary is the boss of an enormous executive branch. The Secretary of State is the boss of the State Department. They're the department that is involved in the relationship between the United States and foreign countries, but not based on war. Based on diplomacy and treaties and trade, stuff like that. Secretary of the Treasury, he's the boss of an enormous executive department that is directly responsible for taxes, revenue, spending. You get the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Defense. They're responsible for the United States military. At this time, there were 5. There were 5 secretaries. Secretary of State, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of War, the Post Office, and the Attorney General. Those 5. And Jackson didn't like any of them because he realized something about those 5, which is somewhat still true today. They're not necessarily qualified. They're just rich. They're the people that help you get elected. So in exchange for you helping me get elected, I'll name you Secretary of whatever. It's true today, right? Somebody will be named Ambassador of Luxembourg. And I defy anyone to go up that map and find Luxembourg.
Jack, he's related to that.
Okay, fine. Good work.
He's from there.
No, it's not. It's like 0.6%, all right?
Okay, fine. All right. Congrats. Now, is that person, is the United States relationship with Luxembourg vital? No. So what Trump did and what Obama did and what Clinton did and what every president does is if some rich person that helped him get elected, ambassador to whatever. There, it's a nice little title, and you get to visit Luxembourg, which I'm sure is a lovely place. Same thing here. These 5 people were not qualified, in Jackson's view, to be the actual Secretary of State or Treasury or Post Office or Attorney General or War. They just helped him get elected. So Jackson needed a group of people that he actually would listen to. And that group became known as the Kitchen Cabinet. These were newspaper editors, lawyers that Jackson invited to the White House once in a while. The reason they were called the Kitchen Cabinet is because the kitchen door is where they got let in, the back door of the White House. And these were people that gave him advice. So this is the actual cabinet, not really qualified. And so he appoints another group of people. And I would, again, argue that Trump sort of has a kitchen cabinet. It's called Fox News. And they give him advice. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But sometimes you appoint someone and you don't agree with them, but they're the secretary of whatever. I mean, how many has Trump fired already? He's got his own unofficial group of advisors, and there's nothing wrong with that. Oftentimes, Obama listened to his wife. She's not an official anything. She's the wife of the president. Trump listens to his daughter and his son and his other son, right? They're not official anything. I think his son-in-law is actually an official something. I don't know what he is. Christian, I think is his name. I think he actually is something. I don't really know. So this is actually kind of common. If you want to know where this story goes, there's a law that was passed, 50 years later. Jackson is a president, but it's called the Pendleton Act. It is the Pendleton Act, which required that anybody that is going to be in an official government position, you have to show you're competent. So you have to take a test. The creation of a test. So you got to do more than contribute money to the winning campaign. You actually have to have some brains. So if any of you want to be Secret Service someday, FBI, CIA, do you want to work for the government in any fashion? There's a big old test you have to take. My brother works for the U.S. Army Corps up in Engineers. He now has level 3 security clearance. I don't even know what that means. But he had to take a big old test. It's called the Civil Service Exam. And it's common. If you want to work for the U.S. government, you have to take a test. When did that start? Right here. Okay. Any questions? There's one other thing up here. It's called the spoil system. That is when you name supporters to official government positions because they help you get elected. That whole idea that you're going to help me get elected, and in exchange, I'm going to name you to some important position. That's called the spoil system. And it officially ended in 1883 when they said, "No, you got to take a test." I would argue it isn't ended at all. And I'm not even sure that's a bad thing. You name people who helped you get elected. Why would Trump, the day after he get elected, say and my first move, Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, you'll be a great one. What? That doesn't make any sense, right? Of course you'll name people who helped you get elected. But the new thing is they also have to be qualified. That's the new part. Okay. Any questions? Anybody good? All right, take a 1 minute break here because I've got gifts for you. I've got things to give you. Yes, ma'am. Not one time. Not a single time.
Well, so is the character wanting to be an FBI character or wanting to be an FBI agent, and you took the test and he
Yes.
That's funny.
He's an idiot.
Yeah.
Do you want me to stop this? Or are you gonna keep it rolling?
I think we should keep it rolling because I want whoever missed to hear the part about these gifts I'm giving. There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. Thanks. There you go. You ever seen Dumb and Dumber?
Yeah.
I'm like Jim Carrey when he's handing out hundreds. There you go. 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 There you go.
This is tiny.
There you go. There you go.
Did you get the exchange
Your
impact
partner
thing?
wants to
I think for art. Did you get it? You don't play on the computer?
Yeah, he is too.
What am I telling?
And part two.
Whoa. It goes without saying.
I had it this semester. Thank you.
De nada.
I don't know.
I heard your question and the answer is okay. So, Your second paper topic is basically an attempt to answer this kind of prompt. Why did slaves work hard? Why did they do that? That's a possible answer. Okay, so the possible answers are actually the x, the x of this is y, this is x, going across. The possible answers are listed going across. Maybe slaves worked hard because it was just part of their culture. That's just what you did. It was a value. I'll put it this way. It was just part of the African DNA to work hard. It's just what you did. But maybe another possible answer is there was a financial reward. If you worked hard, maybe your owner, and this is actually true, some owners allowed for, as long as you work for me for 6 days of the week, that 7th day, you can plant and grow crops and you sell them and whatever profit, you get to keep it, but give me those 6 days. So there was some sort of an economic incentive to work hard. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's because you were part of a community. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have you combine these two. They're the same idea. So will you scratch sense of community and simply put it underneath part of Black culture? Because to me, that's the same thing, right? That you're part of something, right? Oh, massa, we's gonna hack some corn, massa. Yes, sir, massa. Oh, this is great. And I gets to work with my wife and my children, and we're gonna work together. So scratch sense of community. And maybe it's what Jack back there said. Maybe I work hard so I don't get whooped to avoid punishment. Okay? So you've got 3 possible answers for why slaves worked hard. And we appear to have 3 different historians. I'm going to scratch Fogel and Engerman. So you can go ahead and scratch that entire bottom row. Column, row, scratch it. The whole thing going across. You are writing a paper comparing and choosing from 2 historians' perspectives, just like what you did with Zinn versus Schweikert and Allen versus their views of Columbus or European justification for colonization. This time you're comparing 2 historians' views on 1 issue, not 2 though. 1 issue.
Oh, so we just pick one of these. We don't have to do all.
Well, no, you're going to address all 3. Oh yeah.
Then,
Well, damn it. Stop it. So what you're going to do is first we're going to figure out what Genovese has to say. Genovese is another historian. And look, this is the article by Genovese. He is going to address these issues in here. Okay. So what I could do, but what I won't do, what I could have done is had each of you read the entire thing. That's this page isn't part of it, so you can cross that out. That's the previous chapter. But that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 17 pages. 17 pages.
This is just for that one historian.
This is Genovese's article, okay? But I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is number you 1 through 6. 1 through 6. And each of you is going to be responsible for 3 pages. Okay? 2 pages. Right? Okay, so ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so Ones, you have page 297, 298, and 299. Follow me? Twos, you have page 300, 301, and 302. So far, so good?
Mhm.
Threes, you have 303, 304, and 305. Fours, you have 306, 307, 308. Where am I? Fives, you have 309, 310, 311. Sixes, you have 312, 313, and that's it.
Yeah, I only did two.
Okay. Now, it is quite possible that when you're starting to read your page, it'll be in the middle of a sentence. I give you permission to go back to the previous page and, so that you know what you're reading, or maybe even start the previous paragraph. That's allowed. You can go beyond your pages slightly, okay? And mark this up all you want. What you're looking for is Geneviese's arguments about these motivations. Genovese either buys it and provides arguments that it's true, or he rejects it. It says, by the way, this is not a motivation for why slaves worked hard. Okay, and I don't want to give you any sort of clues yet. I will, but read your 3 pages and see if you can find evidence for his acceptance of or rejection of the idea that blacks worked hard because it was just part of their culture, or that there was an economic incentive, or that it was to avoid punishment. Okay? When is a fair due date for you to read 3 pages? I know what I think is a fair due date, but I trust you. What would be would tomorrow? I mean, that's it. I'm done. I will stop talking, and you have the remainder of the. Yeah, I think tomorrow. I think tomorrow is perfectly reasonable. If you want to get together with your fellow numbers and work together, fine. I have no problem with that. Okay. So in your little world right now, you've got 2 Kias. You've got you got to find a good quote for your essay. You've got this and one more debate.
So this is a paper.
This is a paper. This is your second quarter paper. This will ultimately be due about Christmas.
Oh, this is paper, not essay?
Paper, not essay. Okay. Very good. I'm done. Street.
No. We do that.
I think she's talking about